Hey guys, it's Paul, combat veteran, MMA fighter, YouTuber, and we are here at last, the final installment of Bricky's Every Faction in Warhammer 40k Explained. This is like part 6 of this video, but it's just such a great overview that we really couldn't do it justice without breaking it down. But before we get started, if you too think that if enough people believed in him and worshipped him, Big E might just get up off that throne, hit that subscribe button, and check out my merch store. As you guys can see, the merch is in, right? And the kind of psychedelic design the artist did, right, depicts someone who, for copyright purposes, is not a Krieger. He doesn't have a helmet or a las gun. It's modeled after yours truly. But he's drinking some coffee, right? As you know, coffee is the lifeblood of any military, even in the 41st millennium. So merch is also the best way to support the channel, right? Rep it. And if you get it, take a pic and shout it out on my Instagram, right? I always follow it. I get notified. There's not that many followers, so if you hit me up, I will probably respond there. Also, check it out. I've started a Patreon if you want to support the channel that way. Also an option. And I think that's it. Alright, guys. Let's get after it.
End up taking missions that take them years, 2-3 years, to infiltrate a heretical group and slowly work their way up just to get enough time to put a bullet into the main target's head and then escape unharmed.
Actually, believe it or not, 2 or 3 years, that's really a common length of time for any law enforcement investigation. It's, you know, we think of things as being very quick, very rapid, like any good, you know, TV procedural, that if we want to do anything, any intelligence-based operation, that it's quick. But no, it's common to see these be 4 or 5 year investigations, and that's because collecting evidence is hard work, and people are confusing, they move, they do strange things, they drop off the radar, they come back up. So yeah, really common. 2 to 3 years is a relatively quick moving investigation.
Or become the main target and sabotage it from within. These are all completely about deception, mind tricks, polymorphing, and everything in between. And lots of drawings. Lots of drawings. The
That was thick.
Eversor Temple. Just kind of disturbing one. The Eversor Temple is about when you don't want anything to come back alive, friend or foe. You want it all dead. And Eversor is psychogenically conditioned with just psychotherapy and psychological torture to only feel violence, hatred, and anger. It does the Clockwork Orange style of thing of just making you forced to watch never-ending pain and misery and psycho conditioning, I guess is the term. And then they pump you full of tons of psychedelic drugs, and they cry.
Okay, all right. Okay, this is ridiculous. So, yeah, okay. Someone who is like fixated on violence, right? That does happen sometimes. And you know, they're usually a pretty unstable class of person, right? Because I mean, how many times do you as a person, right? And maybe this is just me being a former soldier, right? Somebody cuts you off, somebody drives like an idiot, right? There's that little voice in the back of your head that's like, punch that dude in the face. And logically, you're like, no, of course not. That's ridiculous. We're all in cars. What am I going to do? You just get mad and then you let it go. But having somebody who is conditioned only for insane levels to perpetrate insane levels of violence would be a terrible assassin. Right? What you would want is someone who is a complete sociopath, who experiences no emotional event when they kill something, when they dismember it, right? They look about pulling the organs out of a living creature with the same way you would look at pulling apart an old phone, right, to see how it works. That would be the perfect assassin, because that's someone who would not hesitate at all to do what was necessary to accomplish the mission. But someone who is who you've intentionally emotionally destabilized is the last person you'd want to send on an assassination mission, right? Again, what if they, you know, on their way to the target, someone cuts them off in traffic? I mean, it's a silly example, but like, it's true. Like, if you work someone up like that, who's been exposed to that level of trauma, it's really, really common to see these sort of, I'm going to use the word unhinged, but like these sort of blow-ups, right? These highly emotional, violent blow-ups. This is one of the reasons it's unfortunately really common to see PTSD and like domestic violence happen, you know, because you end up with this person who's seen these traumatic events, and when they have a family member, right, do something that really makes them upset, really gets them worked up, that parts of their brain start to shut down. So their frontal lobes that do some of that regulation, and so they will sometimes get violent. So again, this is an insane, a ridiculous, and stupid way to create assassins, even if you wanted highly violent ones.
Freeze you. And then they drop you in an area where they just want to make sure everything is dead. And then you defrost, full of just all this insane, mind-boggling psychotherapy and psychedelic drugs, and you just go to town. Yeah, if you don't care if anyone comes back alive. You're like, all right, lost cause, send them in. Finally, there's the most bizarre temple.
And then you would drop them with no intelligence into an area you just want everyone killed? The only way I could see the Imperium using something like this, but even that one person is not, like, you couldn't, two of them can't work together, right? They can't cooperate because they're ultra violent killers. So you can't have them do like a force on force. The only use I could possibly conceive of is if you wanted, like, I don't know, a like village that had been exposed to corruption, and like you couldn't have your space marines or guardsmen like kill a bunch of women and children, so you're just like, here's someone who's already psychologically destroyed, so we won't have to worry about like psychologically damaging our precious Astartes to, you know, exterminate this, I don't know, village that saw too many orcs or something.
The Calexus Temple. The Calexus Assassins are feared even among the other temples. So that blank gene, the people will go to the Calexus Temple with this as well. And this is where they can harness that to be massively anti-psyker, or even just anti-regular people. They are seen with extreme fear and distrust among many, many people. They are described by the Eldar, by quote, as being pure evil. Imagine that uncomfortable feeling from that blank gene I mentioned, and then imagine them being taught and given equipment to amplify it by 100. If normally regular people feel uncomfortable, now they are basically akin to being a siren wailing directly in your ear. And if you're a psyker, oh no. The sheer presence of a Calexus assassin is enough for you to tear your skin off. You will rather gouge your eyes.
See, that sounds useful just to detect psychers. If your goal is to find them easily, that sounds like a really easy way to do it. Just have this dude walk around your hive worlds and find the people that freak out
And rip your nails off than even being near this person. The Calexus Assassin is when you want psychers to literally lose their minds, and they will go on their knees and ask you to gun them down because it is a suitable choice over being anywhere near you. The motto of that temple is, "That which is unknown and unseen commands the greatest fear." Now, for the tabletop, assassins aren't that special. You can call them in no matter what Imperium faction you are, and they do a lot of work for themselves, but at the same time, they're very specialized and require a lot of finesse. And they work the way you generally want them to, though. You want to cause some distortion and weird stuff, you take a Calexus. You want to just murder swaths of infantry and then blow up Eversor. You want to kill that one guy, Vindicare, and if you have a lot of psychers, Calexus. It's a nice little, like, jack of all trades if you have a specific thing you want to kill.
So it's the opposite of a jack of all trades. They're one tiny, ultra specialized unit. which is funny because that's originally how the military special operations forces were, and sort of they're not still like that. Yeah, that was originally what it was. It was a collection of these units that are ultra focused on doing just a tiny number of like really high skilled tasks really well. You know, the Green Berets were originally founded to do just one thing, and that is work with indigenous like resistance forces against their government. Period. That was all they were meant to do, right? That's why they were sent into this bizarre training pipeline. That's why they were given these like kind of weird guerrilla training tactics. In the Cold War, again, this was seen as kind of a secondary front in a lot of the grander national strategy against the Soviet Union. But it was just like such an in-demand and such a niche skill set that sort of like these assassins, they said, hey, we're just going to siphon off a tiny number of people, and we're just gonna train them up with some language skills, and we're gonna give them these like survival tactics, and we're gonna give them these like highly specialized like guerrilla tactics where like they won't really learn how to like command a brigade ever. We don't really care if they can work with other units. We just want them to be able to drop in and stand up a kind of native resistance force. Of course, now in the past, you know, really, I'd say 10 or 15 years, things have changed, and now special operations forces are kind of the primary force for enacting U.S. Military policy overseas, which I think is, in my personal opinion, is a loss.
And you get to choose which is really fun. But now, let's talk about the last human faction. We can round this video out before we do part 2, the Inquisition. We have a lot to talk about with them.
Well, on the subject of heresy!
Oh boy. Where do I even begin with the Inquisition? Take every secret police you can think of. The KGB, the Gestapo, the CIA, FBI, any of these kinds of people.
Okay, never mind.
And then mark it up by about 10 and give them the most power in the entire Imperium. No, you know what? How about this? This right here, it's not just a quote. This is the Imperial motto, the motto of the Inquisition. I apologize for my bad pronunciation. Innocentia nihil probat. Innocence proves nothing. The most powerful organ.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Here's the thing: if your goal is to root out heresy, that's kind of true, right? And honestly, this is, if you think of them as a counterintelligence force, right? I've been trying to wrap my head around the Inquisition as they've been referenced in other videos, and you know, among other things, among enforcing ideological compliance, but the best way to think of them is to prevent other, what in the modern world we would call like intelligence services, right? But of course this includes things like demons and corruption and the forces of chaos and cults and just general heretical thought. If your goal is to prevent them from gaining a foothold in humanity's like territories, then innocence wouldn't prove anything. The classic example of, you know, again, I think about the, you know, here's a hypothetical example, right? You're a kind of a dumpy 50-year-old dude, you're divorced, but you work for a major defense contractor doing some engineering work on one of the military's like future projects. And on one of the dating apps, a national from a major U.S. Rival power matches with you. And you think, wow, I've been alone for so very long, and maybe your like red flag calibration is like pretty skewed as some dudes get. And so, you know, you go on some dates, you feel good, she's into you, you're like, wow, she's beautiful, she's funny, she's cool, and you start dating. Well, have you committed a crime? No, you haven't. You've gone on dates with someone. Or you've started a romantic relationship, or you've moved in with them. But you've still potentially compromised U.S. national security, right? What are they doing when you're not around? What are they doing? What have they given you? Have they given you jewelry? Have they given you something that you take into work with you? Have they given you a cell phone? Have they put an app on your cell phone, like a chatting app or something? These are all the things that an unwitting person can still do to make themselves vulnerable to counterintelligence or to intelligence gathering efforts by another country. The other classic example is spear phishing, right? And this is something that happens in corporate America as well, where you don't have to be a bad person, right? You're not a malevolent actor if you are a payments processing person and you respond to an official looking email that appears to say, hey, I need you to send payment for the contractor to this bank account by tomorrow. And you process the payment and off it goes and nothing seems amiss to you. But unbeknownst to you, that was a spear phishing email and you've just sent, cyber criminals overseas a large sum of money. So again, an example where, in fact, being an innocent or an actor who doesn't know that they are helping an adversary doesn't necessarily prove that something bad or nefarious hasn't happened. Not that I'm defending the Inquisition, they sound pretty terrible.
Organization in the Imperium, the secret police, their #1 motto is innocence proves nothing. The Inquisition goes around like the secret police or like detectives to find issues in the Imperium. And they have different ordos depending on which one we're talking about. The Ordo Hereticus, the Ordo Xenos, the Ordo Malleus, for instance, and a whole bunch of other ones. Hereticus is obvious, they deal with heretics. Xenos tries to find alien threats, and Malleus is demons. They all have different specializations in what they're trying to go for.
Okay, I gotta bring this up. Male pattern baldness in the 41st millennium. It's like that and the evil gene are just like stuck together. Like even the Emperor, right? A man who handcrafted his Primarchs from like amino acid by amino acid, right? Stitching them together into a beautiful genetic tapestry. His greatest creation, right? His sons, his Primarchs. And he still was like, half of them, he's like, male pattern baldness, they won't mind. Like, damn. And look at this dude. Look at that widow's peak. I mean, it's not even a widow's peak. That's a maturing hairline. He looks scary, right? I mean, he looks scary and like a boss. But again, right there, you see that and you think, bad guy. And you're probably right, because he's the Inquisition, right?
Or as this Inquisitor. And that's what they're called, Inquisitors. Each of them, as an Inquisitor, has their own free reign to do as they wish. They may have a ship and a crew, and they go out to find problems and interrogate people a lot. They are above the law in every department over Space Marines. Now, the Space Marines might argue against them and stuff, and there might be a lot of blowback, but technically they are above them as Inquisitors. They are looking to investigate and figure out coups and cults and demonic incursions and possible Xenos issues like gene stealers or a new threat coming into an area.
Yeah, it's, there's a huge difference, and I don't want to get too much into some of this. There's a huge difference between having legal authority over an agency to do certain things and practically actually being able to do those things. And I think the Space Marines and Inquisition are probably a great illustration, right? Sometimes the Space Marines probably yes-sir their way through the Inquisition requests. Sometimes Space Marines are probably like, go pound sand. And sometimes the Space Marines and the Inquisition have to like talk it out. We like, why do you want to do this? Well, I want to do this because of this reason. Well, we don't want to. Well, we got this other thing we're doing. Okay, well, can you spare me any people? This is, again, there's the legal reality, the legal facts on paper of who's in charge, and then there's the practical reality on the ground, and even in modern government, right? This is sort of how it goes.
They're about learning that stuff and actually doing detective work. And memes aside, they're pretty good at it. The Inquisition having all of this power does make them a little bit power hungry and frantic sometimes. And yes, it is still a bad thing, but most of them are pretty good at their job. And they spend a lot of time being very diligent to make sure that all of these leads they follow are proper and correct. They're basically space detectives with just enormous power and sometimes a bit of a power complex. And we haven't even talked about Exterminatus yet. Exterminatus.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to love? Nothing, actually. I mean, it's tough to say, right? Like, what I guess is what's curious to me, and I want you commenters, please let me know, because I'm really curious, right? Every other sub-faction, it works so hard on recruiting. And how do you find these people, and how do you select them? And then here you have, as far as I could tell, the Imperium's top tier of thinkers, analysts, intellectuals, and I have a huge bias, well, sort of, for the Inquisition as a military police soldier, right? Because in a lot of ways, right, we were, not in a lot of ways, we were definitely viewed by the rank and file soldiers as the Inquisition, right? Because, again, you get pulled over by one of my privates. If you're a lieutenant colonel, they just have to call me and let me know they stopped a lieutenant colonel. But if you screwed up, I'm going to sit there and watch them arrest you and take you to the drunk tank or whatever you did, right? This is the authority that you have. You know, we answer only to our own. Ultimately, we answer to sort of the garrison commander, but even the garrison commander doesn't have law enforcement authority. You know, we have one of our own, another military police officer, who's a provost marshal, and they have that authority. Now, of course, it's much harder. Obviously, you can't abuse the system, right? There's a lot of safeguards, obviously, that Warhammer 40k doesn't have. But selecting someone with the temperament and a soldier with the temperament and caliber and I don't want to say intellect because that's sort of patronizing, but like you need a certain temperament and you need a certain deliberative, analytical mind to do the work as a private, right? As an 18-year-old, and it's kind of hard to find them and identify those people. So I'm extremely curious how something like the Imperium finds and selects its Inquisitors.
Exterminatus is deeming a planet unfit to be saved. I deem that this planet is demon infested and taking it back will cost too many resources and is not worth it. I have now committed Exterminatus on this planet. I will now sign the death warrant of an entire Imperium planet as it is unfit to take and better to be destroyed than allow the enemy to hold it. This can mean saturation bombardment, this can mean cracking the planet's core and breaking it apart. Doesn't matter, render this planet inhospitable to all life. Yes, the innocents proves nothing people are the only people who can choose this planet must die in its entirety.
Okay, they've got to have some sort of checks on that authority, right?
Yeah, you're playing the villain. Now, it is memed a lot, but most Inquisitors are very rare to do Exterminatus. Exterminatus is a very crazy thing. There's only so many worlds that you don't want to destroy all of them. Now, naturally, with the memes aside, there are some people who are a little bit rough on this one. But most Inquisitors generally don't like to do Exterminatus a ton, but it is an option they have.
Yeah, I really want to know, is there a hierarchy, right? Do they have to get someone to authorize Exterminatus, right? Or do they just call the local battle fleet and are just like, hey guys, whatever you're doing, stop doing it. You've been ordered by an Inquisitor to Exterminatus a planet. And yeah, like, how do they document it? How do they reach these conclusions? Yeah, and again, I really want to know how you train and raise up an Inquisitor.
You have, and it's a crazy option when you think about it. Secret Police Inquisition are unfortunately not represented on the tabletop very much. You generally kind of put one in your army if you feel like it. You have a couple special options there and some side content, but they're not really fleshed out very well, and personally they need a lot more stuff put in there, and they really need a lot more effort put into them, and they're not quite where I want them to be. Overall, the Inquisition makes for a lot of the best storytelling as well, because it's a little bit hard to talk about a big story of a whole bunch of Space Marines killing something. Right? It's just a big battle story. It's not as interesting. Having that intrigue and that moral dilemma that an Inquisitor has makes for a lot better media. And honestly, the more people do it, I think it's better, because then it adds a little more humanity to the Warhammer horrible, horrible grimdarkness. And wow.
Okay, yeah, definitely the Inquisition adding humanity to it. I guess maybe, I don't know, man. If the most human people are the secret police, dude, damn. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, I know there's a ton of books out there. If you guys have, like, your favorite books for Warhammer, just like fiction, that's just sort of fun, that's a good read, that's maybe not like the standard kind of pulpy, franchise tie-in type novelizations, let me know in the comments.
We just finished the humans, all right? Come back for part 2 when we talk about Chaos and Xenos, because we got to talk about the
Whoo, buddy, guys, that is it. We are done. Bricky's is done. I feel like I have a really good overview of the Imperium's major players. Now, again, as you know, Bricky glosses over a lot, and definitely let me know in the comments what he has glossed over. But, man, this was just a lot of fun. Now, the real question is, what do I do next? So, I'm thinking making a Space Marine by, I think it's Luton. Or the next part of Every Faction Explained, or another video. Let me know what you guys got that you think I should check out. That's going to be a good next one. Or, you know, Soda says a new video. Yeah, just let me know in the comments. I'm really open to whatever. I mean, you see I make these videos pretty regularly, so, you know, I got time for it all. Alright, guys, thank you for watching all the way till the end, and I will see you next time.